The restaurant was everything Desiree had imagined for her engagement dinner. Warm Edison bulbs casting amber light across exposed brick walls. The kind of upscale casual atmosphere that said, "We've made it," without screaming pretension. Candles flickered on tables draped in cream linen, and the scent of rosemary and garlic drifted from the open kitchen where chefs worked with choreographed precision. Outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, Chicago's West Loop glittered with Friday night energy, people moving between galleries and cocktail bars, living the kind of urban life Desiree had worked so hard to build. She stood near the entrance at 6:47 p.m., smoothing down the emerald silk dress she'd spent 3 weeks finding, the perfect shade to complement her deep brown skin, the perfect cut to make her feel confident without trying too hard. Her natural hair was twisted into an elegant updo that had taken her stylist 2 hours to perfect. Everything had to be right. This was the night she'd introduced Terrence to her extended family, the night she'd officially merge her two worlds. "Baby, you look nervous," Terrence said, appearing beside her with 2 glasses of champagne. He looked devastating in a charcoal suit that emphasized his athletic build, his fade fresh, his smile easy. At 34, Terrence Mitchell had the kind of confidence that came from never having to question his place in the world. Northwestern MBA, senior consultant at Deloitte, the son of a prominent Chicago attorney. He was everything Desiree's mother had prayed for, everything society said a successful black woman should want. "I'm not nervous," Desiree lied, accepting the champagne. "Just want everything to be perfect." "It will be. They're going to love me." He kissed her temple, and Desiree felt the familiar flutter in her stomach that had been there since their first date 18 months ago. Terrence had pursued her with single-minded determination after they'd met at a networking event. Flowers delivered to her office, thoughtful texts, dinners at restaurants she'd only read about in Chicago Magazine. He'd made her feel chosen in a city where dating as a 30-year-old black woman often felt like an endurance sport. The engagement had happened 3 weeks ago on a yacht cruise along Lake Michigan, complete with a photographer who'd captured every moment, a ring that had cost more than Desiree's first car, and a proposal speech that had made her cry. Her Instagram post had gotten 2,147 likes. Her mother had called it a blessing from God. Her friends had filled the comments with heart emojis and declarations of relationship envy. But standing here now, watching her family arrive in clusters, Desiree felt something she couldn't quite name. Not doubt exactly, but a whisper of unease that she'd been pushing down for weeks. "There's my girl." Her mother, Patricia, swept in wearing royal purple and enough jewelry to stock a small boutique. She pulled Desiree into a hug that smelled like Chanel No. 5 and maternal pride. "Look at you, baby, glowing like the bride-to-be you are." "Hi, Mama." Desiree relaxed into the embrace, drawing strength from her mother's familiar warmth. "And this must be the man who's stealing my daughter." Patricia turned to Terrence with an appraising look that had made grown men squirm. But Terrence just smiled that easy smile and extended his hand. "Mrs. Hamilton, it's an honor to finally meet you. Desiree talks about you constantly." Patricia's expression softened slightly. "Please call me Patricia. And you better be good to my daughter, young man. She's special." "I know she is. That's why I put a ring on it." Terrence wrapped an arm around Desiree's waist, pulling her close in a gesture that was both affectionate and possessive. More family arrived in waves. Desiree's father, aunts, uncles, cousins she hadn't seen since last Christmas. The restaurant's private dining room filled with the particular energy of black family gatherings. Loud greetings, playful insults, the kind of laughter that came from shared history, and blood bonds that stretched back generations. Desiree moved through the crowd, making introductions, accepting congratulations, feeling the weight of expectation settle on her shoulders. At 30, she was the first of her generation to get engaged to someone her family unanimously approved of. Not like her cousin Marcus, who'd married a woman the family only tolerated. Not like her sister Janelle, whose long-term boyfriend still hadn't proposed after 7 years. Desiree was doing it right, and everyone wanted to celebrate that victory. Des, oh my God, let me see it again. Her best friend since college, Amber, grabbed her hand to examine the engagement ring for the 1,000th time. The 2-carat diamond caught the light, throwing tiny rainbows across the table. "Girl, Terrence did his thing. This is beautiful." "It is, isn't it?" Desiree smiled, letting herself feel proud of the symbol on her finger, of what it represented. "And he's fine as hell," Amber whispered. "You hit the jackpot, babe. Rich, educated, fine. And he actually wants to marry you? In this economy? That's basically a miracle." Desiree laughed, but the comment lodged somewhere uncomfortable. Was it really a miracle that a good man wanted to marry her? Was she really so lucky just to be chosen? "Where's Simone?" Desiree asked, scanning the room for her cousin. She texted that she was running late, but that was 45 minutes ago. "You know Simone," Amber said with an eye roll, always making an entrance. Desiree did know Simone. They'd grown up more like sisters than cousins, only 11 months apart in age, inseparable through childhood and adolescence. Simone was the wild one, the risk-taker, the girl who'd moved to LA at 22 to pursue acting, and had spent the last 8 years waitressing and going to auditions that never led anywhere. She'd moved back to Chicago 6 months ago, tail between her legs, crashing with her mother while she figured things out. The family worried about Simone. She was 31 with no real career, no stability, a string of failed relationships with men who never seemed to treat her right. She was the cautionary tale, the example of what happened when you chase dreams instead of security. And Desiree, responsible, stable, successful Desiree, was the one who'd done everything right. At least that's what everyone said. "All right, everyone." Terrence's voice cut through the conversation, amplified by the confidence of someone used to commanding rooms. He stood at the head of the table, wine glass raised. "If I could have your attention for just a moment." The room settled, all eyes turning to Terrence. Desiree felt her cheeks warm as she realized he was about to make a speech. She loved him for this, his willingness to be vulnerable, to express emotion, to claim their relationship publicly. "First, I want to thank all of you for being here tonight," Terrence began, his voice smooth and practiced. "Family is everything, and the fact that you all came out to celebrate with us means the world to both Desiree and me." Murmurs of approval rippled through the room. "I met Desiree 18 months ago at what I thought was going to be another boring networking event. I almost didn't go. I was tired, had worked late all week, just wanted to go home and watch the Bulls game. But something told me to show up. And there she was." Desiree felt her eyes sting with tears. She'd heard this story before, but it still moved her. She was standing by the bar, laughing with colleagues, and I swear the whole room just dimmed. Everyone else became background noise. I knew right then that I had to meet her, had to know her, had to make her mine. Terrence looked directly at Desiree, his expression tender. And 18 months later, I can honestly say she's the best thing that ever happened to me. She's brilliant, beautiful, kind, and way too good for me. But I'm selfish enough to marry her anyway. Laughter and applause filled the room. Desiree wiped her eyes, smiling through happy tears. "So here's to family." Terrence raised his glass higher. "To love. To—" The restaurant door burst open, and Simone rushed in on a wave of cold November air and apologies. "I'm so sorry I'm late." She was breathless, her long box braids swinging as she hurried toward the private dining room. The red line was a complete disaster, and then I couldn't find parking, and Des. She spotted Desiree and her face lit up with genuine joy. "Congratulations, cousin. I'm so happy for you." Simone crossed the room and pulled Desiree into a hug that smelled like coconut oil, and the particular desperation of someone who was always running late, always making excuses, always just barely keeping it together. "You look amazing," Simone said, pulling back to look at Desiree. And she meant it. Desiree could see the sincerity in her cousin's eyes, mixed with something else. Envy? Sadness? It was hard to tell. Simone herself looked good despite the chaos of her arrival. She wore a fitted burgundy dress that showed off curves that had always been more generous than Desiree's. Her makeup was flawless, and her braids were styled in an intricate pattern that must have taken hours. But there was something in her eyes, something tired and desperate, that no amount of makeup could hide. "Simone, this is Terence," Desiree said, turning to her fiancé. "Terence, this is my cousin Simone." "I've told you about her." "The actress," Terence said, extending his hand with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Desiree's mentioned you. Welcome." "Former actress," Simone corrected with a self-deprecating laugh. "Currently unemployed dreamer. But hey, at least I'm honest about it." She shook his hand, and something passed between them. A look, a moment, something so brief Desiree almost missed it. "Well, you're here now," Patricia said, her voice carrying the particular strain of a mother dealing with her perpetually disappointing niece. "Come sit down. You've already missed the toast." "Sorry, Auntie Pat." Simone slid into a seat near the end of the table, and the dinner resumed its course. The food was spectacular: seared scallops, truffle risotto, perfectly cooked steaks that Desiree's father declared worth every penny. Conversation flowed easily, lubricated by wine and the genuine happiness that came from family celebrating good news. Terence charmed everyone, telling stories about his work, asking thoughtful questions about people's lives, playing the role of perfect future family member with practiced ease. But Desiree found her attention drifting to Simone, who sat at the far end of the table picking at her food and drinking wine faster than anyone else. Her cousin's usual vivacity was muted, replaced by something that looked like sadness, wrapped in forced smiles. "Excuse me for a minute," Desiree whispered to Terence, then made her way down the table to slide into the empty seat beside Simone. "Hey," she said softly. "You okay?" Simone looked up, and for a moment, her carefully maintained facade cracked. "Yeah, I'm fine. Just, you know, another family event where everyone's doing great, and I'm the fuck-up." "You're not a fuck-up." "Des, I'm 31 years old, living with my mother, with no job and no prospects. I spent 8 years chasing a dream that clearly wasn't meant for me. I am literally the definition of a fuck-up." She took another long sip of wine. "But this isn't about me. This is your night, your engagement, your perfect life with your perfect man." There was an edge to her voice that made Desiree's stomach tighten. "Simone, I'm serious. I'm happy for you. You deserve this." Simone reached over and squeezed Desiree's hand. "You've always been the smart one, the responsible one. You made good choices, and now you're getting the fairy tale ending. It's not a fairy tale. It's real life. Marriage and commitment and building something together." "Right. Real life." Simone's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Can I ask you something? And I need you to be honest with me." "Of course." "Are you happy? Like, really truly happy? Not this is what I'm supposed to want happy. Not everyone approves happy. But deep down, soul-level happy?" The question hit Desiree like a physical blow. She opened her mouth to say yes. Of course she was happy. What kind of question was that? But the words stuck in her throat. "I love Terence," she said instead. "He's good to me. He's stable and successful, and he wants the same things I want. That's not what I asked." Before Desiree could respond, Terence appeared beside them. "Ladies, am I interrupting?" "Not at all," Simone said quickly, her expression smoothing into something neutral. "I was just telling Des how lucky she is. You seem like a great guy." "I try." Terence's hand landed on Desiree's shoulder, warm and heavy. "Baby, your dad wants to make a toast. You should probably be up there with me." "Right, of course." Desiree stood, glad for the escape from Simone's uncomfortable questions. She let Terence guide her back to the head of the table where her father stood with a glass raised. Her father's toast was everything it should be: emotional, funny, filled with embarrassing childhood stories and declarations of love and pride. Desiree cried again, grateful for her family, for this moment, for the life she'd built. But she couldn't shake Simone's question. "Are you happy?" The dinner continued through dessert. A beautiful engagement cake that someone had ordered without telling Desiree. More toasts followed, each one raising the emotional temperature of the room. Desiree smiled until her face hurt, hugged relatives until her arms ached, and tried to ignore the growing knot in her stomach. Around 9:30, as the party was winding down, Desiree excused herself to the restroom. The wine had gone to her head slightly, and she needed a moment alone to collect herself, to push away the strange unease that had been building all evening. The bathroom was blessedly quiet, all marble and soft lighting. Desiree stood at the sink, staring at her reflection. She looked happy. She looked like a woman who had everything she wanted. So why did she feel like something was wrong? She was reapplying lipstick when Simone entered. "Hey," her cousin said, leaning against the wall. She was clearly drunk now, her eyes slightly unfocused, her movements looser than usual. "Can we talk? For real this time?" "Simone, what's going on with you tonight?" "I need to tell you something." Simone's voice was thick with emotion and wine. "And you're probably going to hate me for it, but I can't watch you make this mistake." "What mistake? What are you talking about?" "Terrence." Simone said the name like it hurt. "Des, I need you to listen to me. You deserve better." The words hung in the air between them, strange and threatening. "What?" "You deserve better than him. Better than this. You're settling, Des, and I can't watch you do it." Anger flared in Desiree's chest. "Are you serious right now? At my engagement dinner, you're going to tell me I'm settling? When did you become an expert on relationships, Simone? Your longest relationship lasted 6 months." Simone flinched. "You're right. I'm a mess. But that doesn't mean I can't see when someone I love is making a mistake. This isn't a mistake. Terrence loves me. We're building a life together. Just because your life didn't work out the way you planned doesn't mean you get to shit on mine." The words were harsher than Desiree intended, fueled by wine and defensiveness, and the uncomfortable truth in Simone's questions. She watched her cousin's face crumble, watched the hurt bloom in her eyes. "You're right," Simone whispered. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said anything. Congratulations, Des. I hope you'll be very happy." She turned and left the bathroom, leaving Desiree alone with her reflection and a feeling like she'd just made a terrible mistake. When Desiree returned to the dining room 3 minutes later, both Simone and Terrence were gone. "Where's Terrence?" she asked Amber. "He said he needed to take a call. Something about work. He stepped outside like 5 minutes ago." "And Simone?" Amber shrugged. "She left right after you went to the bathroom. Didn't say goodbye to anyone, just grabbed her coat and bounced. You know how she is." Desiree felt cold despite the warmth of the restaurant. She pulled out her phone and texted Terrence. "Where are you?" No response. She called. It rang 5 times before going to voicemail. "I'm sure he'll be right back," her mother said, noticing Desiree's expression. "Probably just dealing with some work emergency. You know how these corporate jobs are." But 15 minutes passed, then 20. Desiree tried calling again. Nothing. She texted Simone. "Where did you go? Are you okay?" Nothing. The party was winding down now, people putting on coats, thanking Desiree for the lovely evening, offering final congratulations. She smiled and hugged, and said all the right things while her mind spun with possibilities, each one worse than the last. At 10:45, with most of the guests gone, Desiree stood on the sidewalk outside the restaurant, phone in hand, calling Terrence for the 8th time. The November wind cut through her dress, making her shiver. "Baby, come inside," her mother called from the doorway. "You're going to freeze." "Something's wrong," Desiree said. "He wouldn't just leave, not without telling me. I'm sure there's an explanation. Maybe his phone died." But Desiree knew. Somehow, in a way that bypassed logic and landed directly in her gut. She knew. She opened her Uber app, typed in Simone's mother's address, where Simone had been staying, and requested a ride. "Des, what are you doing?" Amber appeared beside her. "I need to find them." "Find who? Terrence? Simone? What's going on?" "I don't know, but something's wrong. Simone was acting weird and now they're both gone, and neither of them are answering their phones and—" Her voice broke. "Something's wrong." The Uber pulled up. Desiree got in, ignoring her mother's protests, ignoring Amber's offers to come with her. She needed to do this alone. The drive to Simone's mother's house in Bronzeville took 18 minutes. Desiree spent them trying to rationalize, to find innocent explanations. Maybe Simone had gotten sick and left early. Maybe Terrence really was dealing with a work emergency. Maybe she was being paranoid and insecure, and this would all be fine. But when the Uber pulled up to the small brick bungalow where Simone was staying, Desiree saw Terrence's car parked 2 houses down. She paid the driver with shaking hands and walked toward the house. The lights were on inside. Through the living room window, she could see movement. Desiree climbed the front steps and tried the door. Unlocked. She pushed it open. The scene that greeted her would replay in her mind for months, years, maybe forever. Simone and Terrence on the couch, locked in an embrace that was clearly not their first. His hands in her hair, her hands on his face, kissing with the desperate intensity of people who'd been waiting to do exactly this. They sprang apart when the door opened, but the damage was done. The truth was written on their guilty faces, in their swollen lips, in the way they'd been touching each other like they'd done it 1,000 times before. Terrence started. But Desiree didn't wait to hear the excuse, the explanation, the lie he would try to sell her. She turned and walked back out into the November night. Her engagement ring suddenly heavy on her finger. Her perfect life crumbling with each step she took away from the 2 people she'd trusted most in the world. Behind her, she heard Terrence calling her name, heard Simone crying. But Desiree just kept walking, away from the engagement dinner that had turned into a nightmare, away from the fiancé who'd been lying to her, away from the cousin who'd betrayed her in the worst possible way. She walked until she couldn't hear them anymore, until the only sound was her heels on pavement and her heart breaking in her chest. The Uber driver didn't ask questions when Desiree got in the car with tears streaming down her face, which she appreciated. She gave him Amber's address in Ukrainian Village. She couldn't go home, not yet. Not to the apartment she shared with Terrence, where his things were scattered like landmines ready to explode her composure. Her phone buzzed constantly. Terrence calling. Simone calling. Text messages flooding in faster than she could read them. She turned it off entirely and watched Chicago blur past the window. Late-night diners and liquor stores. People living their normal Friday night lives while hers imploded. The driver pulled up to Amber's brownstone at 11:42 p.m. Desiree stood on the sidewalk, suddenly uncertain. It was late. Amber had a 7-year-old daughter. She couldn't just show up unannounced with her life in ruins. But before she could second-guess herself, the front door flew open. Amber stood there in pajamas, phone in hand, face etched with worry. "Oh, thank God," she breathed, rushing down the steps. "Your mom called me freaking out. She said you got in an Uber and wouldn't tell anyone where you were going." Amber stopped when she saw Desiree's face. "Oh, baby, what happened?" And that's when Desiree finally broke. The sobs came from somewhere deep and primal, the kind of crying that made her whole body shake. Amber wrapped her arms around her and held on while Desiree fell apart on the sidewalk. "Come inside," Amber murmured. "Come on, let's get you inside." She guided Desiree up the steps and into the warmth of her home. The living room was cozy, filled with her daughter's toys and framed photos and the comfortable mess of real life. So different from the pristine showplace Desiree and Terrence had curated, where everything matched and nothing was ever out of place. "Sit," Amber commanded, disappearing into the kitchen. She returned moments later with a bottle of wine and 2 glasses. Now talk. The story came out in jagged pieces. The bathroom conversation with Simone, the strange warning, coming back to find them both gone. Terrence's car parked outside Simone's house. The image burned into her brain of them kissing on that couch. That motherfucker, Amber said quietly when Desiree finished. That absolute motherfucker. She said I deserved better. Desiree laughed bitterly. Right before she stole my fiancé. What kind of person does that? A selfish one, a fucked up one. Amber poured more wine. But Des, we need to talk about Terrence. Because Simone didn't force him to do anything. He made a choice. I know. The words came out broken. I know he did. How long do you think it's been going on? Desiree had been asking herself the same question. She thought about the past 6 months since Simone moved back to Chicago. The times Terrence had mentioned running into her at the gym. The night he'd said he was working late, and Desiree had seen Simone's Instagram story from a bar in the West Loop at the same time. The way he'd seemed distracted lately. Distant. I don't know, she whispered. Months, maybe. God, Amber, how did I not see it? Because you trusted them. Because you're not the kind of person who immediately suspects betrayal. That's not a character flaw, Des. That's called being a decent human being. They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of the situation settling around them like fog. Your phone has been going crazy, Amber said, nodding toward Desiree's purse. I'm guessing they're trying to reach you? I turned it off. Smart. You don't owe them any explanations right now. You don't owe them anything. But curiosity, or maybe masochism, made Desiree turn her phone back on. The screen lit up with notifications. 47 missed calls, 63 text messages. She scrolled through them with morbid fascination. Terrence, 23 messages. Please come back. Let me explain. It's not what you think. I love you. This was a mistake. Please, Des, I'm begging you. Where are you? Your mom said you're not answering. I need to talk to you. Please don't make any decisions tonight. Simone, 18 messages. I'm so sorry. Please let me explain. I never meant for this to happen. Des, please, I know you hate me. I hate myself. This wasn't supposed to happen. I tried to warn you. Please talk to me. There were also messages from her mother. Her father, various family members who'd clearly heard something had gone wrong. The engagement dinner that was supposed to be a celebration had turned into a spectacle, and Desiree felt humiliation burn through her alongside the heartbreak. What do they say? Amber asked. Desiree read some of the messages aloud, her voice flat. It's not what you think, Amber repeated. Please tell me what other interpretation exists for your fiancé making out with your cousin on a couch. Apparently there's an explanation. Desiree set the phone down. There's always an explanation, isn't there? Some story that's supposed to make it okay, or at least make it my fault somehow. Don't do that. Don't let them put this on you. But Desiree's mind was already spiraling, sorting through every interaction, every moment, looking for clues she'd missed. Had Terrence seemed too interested when she'd mentioned Simone moving back? Had Simone been too eager to hear about Desiree's relationship? Had there been signs at family gatherings, looks exchanged when Desiree wasn't paying attention? I need to know, Desiree said suddenly. I need to know how long it's been going on. I need to know when my fiancé decided to fuck my cousin behind my back. No, I need to know. I need to understand. Because right now, I feel like my entire life is a lie, and I don't know what's real anymore. Amber looked at her for a long moment. Okay, but not tonight. Tonight you drink this wine, you cry as much as you need to, and you sleep. Tomorrow we can figure out what happens next. I can't sleep. Every time I close my eyes, I see them. Then we won't sleep. We'll stay up all night if we have to. But you're not dealing with this alone, you understand? You're not going through this by yourself. Desiree felt tears burn her eyes again. Thank you. They did stay up most of the night, talking and crying and drinking wine until the bottle was empty. Amber shared her own story of discovering her ex-husband's affair, the particular devastation of betrayal by someone you'd trusted completely. She talked about rebuilding, about learning to trust again, about the slow, painful process of healing. It gets better, Amber promised as dawn started to lighten the windows. Not right away. Not even soon. But eventually, it gets better. The betrayal stops being the first thing you think about when you wake up. The anger fades into something manageable. You remember who you were before them, and you start becoming her again. I don't even know who I was before Terrence, Desiree admitted. I've been so focused on being the perfect girlfriend, the perfect fiancé, on building this perfect life. I don't know who I am without that. Then maybe, Amber said gently, that's what you need to figure out. Desiree finally fell asleep around 6 a.m., curled up on Amber's couch under a soft throw blanket. She dreamed of the engagement dinner, but in the dream, everyone was laughing at her while Terrence and Simone kissed in the center of the room. She woke with a start at 9:30, disoriented and aching. Her phone showed more missed calls, more messages, but there was also one from her mother. Call me when you're ready. I love you. Whatever happened, we'll get through it. Desiree called her mother, who answered on the first ring. Baby. Patricia's voice was thick with worry and fury. Where are you? Are you safe? I'm at Amber's. I'm okay. Your father and I want to come get you. Bring you home. Mama, I'm 30 years old. I don't need you to come get me. What happened last night? Terrence has been calling here, leaving messages, saying there's been a misunderstanding. That boy won't tell me what he did, but I know it's bad from the way you left. Desiree took a breath. I found him with Simone. They were together, kissing, at her house. The silence on the other end was profound. Then, that son of a bitch. It was so unexpected coming from her usually proper mother that Desiree almost laughed. Yeah. And Simone, my niece, Carol's daughter. Yeah. Another silence, heavier than the first. I'm going to kill them both. Mama. No, I'm serious. Your father will help me hide the bodies. Nobody betrays my daughter like that and lives. This time Desiree did laugh, a broken sound that hurt coming out. It's not funny. It's not. It's terrible. But Des, baby, you need to know something. This is not your fault. Whatever those two did, whatever choices they made, that's on them, not you. Everyone keeps saying that. Because it's true. You are a beautiful, intelligent, successful woman who deserves to be treated with respect and loyalty. If Terrence couldn't give you that, if Simone could betray family like this, that's their failing, not yours. They talked for another 20 minutes, Patricia alternating between maternal comfort and murderous rage. By the time they hung up, Desiree felt marginally better, fortified by her mother's unconditional support. I need to go home, she told Amber, who'd been hovering nearby with coffee. I need to get my things before Terrence gets back from work. He has work today? After last night? He always works Saturdays. Desiree had complained about it often enough, the way Terrence prioritized his career over their time together. Now she realized those Saturday work sessions might have been spent doing something, someone else entirely. I'll drive you, Amber said. You're not going alone. They pulled up to the Lincoln Park condo Desiree shared with Terrence at 11:30 a.m. The building was modern glass and steel, the kind of place that said young professionals with disposable income. They'd moved in together a year ago, combining their lives with the careful optimism of people building toward forever. The condo was empty when they entered, thank God. Desiree couldn't have handled facing Terrence yet, wasn't ready for whatever excuses or apologies he'd prepared. What do you need? Amber asked. Clothes, toiletries, my laptop. Desiree moved through the space mechanically. Some books, maybe. She pulled a suitcase from the closet and started packing, trying not to look at Terrence's things hanging beside hers, the physical evidence of the life they'd been building. In the bathroom, his toothbrush sat beside hers in the holder. In the bedroom, the bed was still unmade from yesterday morning when everything had been normal. Had it been normal? Or had Desiree been living in a fantasy while reality played out behind her back? She was folding clothes into the suitcase when she noticed Terrence's laptop sitting on the desk in the corner. He usually took it to work, but he must have forgotten it this morning in his distraction. "Don't," Amber said, seeing where Desiree was looking. "I need to know." "Des, whatever you find on there is only going to hurt more." But Desiree was already opening it. The laptop wasn't password protected, another sign of the trust she'd had, the openness of their relationship, or what she'd thought was openness. She clicked on his Messages app. The conversation history with Simone was right there, not even hidden. September 15th. Terrence, saw you at the gym this morning. You looked good, Simone. Thanks. You too. Terrence, want to grab coffee after your workout tomorrow? Simone, is that a good idea? Terrence, probably not, but I want to see you. September 18th. Simone, I can't stop thinking about what you said, Terrence. Me either. Simone, this is wrong. Des is my cousin Terrence. I know, but I can't help how I feel, Simone. We can't do this. Terrence, I know. September 22nd. Terrence, I miss you, Simone. You saw me yesterday at your engagement party. Terrence, that's not what I mean, and you know it, Simone. Terrence, when can I see you alone? October 3rd. Simone, last night was a mistake. Terrence, it didn't feel like a mistake, Simone. We can't keep doing this. I feel terrible. Terrence, then why do you keep coming back? Simone, I don't know. This is so fucked up, Terrence. I'm falling in love with you. Desiree felt bile rise in her throat. She scrolled further, finding hundreds of messages spanning back to July, right after Simone had moved back to Chicago. 4 months. For 4 months, her fiancé and her cousin had been conducting an affair right under her nose. Oh, God, Amber whispered, reading over her shoulder. Des, stop. You don't need to see this. But Desiree couldn't stop. She kept scrolling, each message another knife wound. October 15th. Terrence, she wants to set a date. Spring wedding. Simone, so what are we doing? What is this? Terrence, I don't know. I love her, but I can't stop thinking about you. Simone, you need to choose Terrence. I will. After the engagement dinner. I promise November 2nd. Simone, I think I should skip the dinner. Terrence, no, I need you there, Simone. Why? So you can parade your perfect relationship in front of me? Terrence, because I've decided. I'm going to end it with Des. I'm choosing you, Simone. You're serious? Terrence, yes, but I need to do it right, after the dinner. I can't humiliate her in front of her family. Simone, and then what? Terrence, then we can be together, for real. No more hiding. Desiree closed the laptop with shaking hands. The room was spinning, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might break through her chest. He was going to leave me, she whispered. The engagement dinner. He was planning to end it after. He'd already decided. Des, sit down. You look like you're going to pass out. All night, while I was introducing him to my family, while he was making toasts about how much he loved me, he'd already decided to leave me for Simone. Desiree laughed, a horrible broken sound. And she knew. She sat at that table knowing she was about to destroy my life. That's why she said you deserved better, Amber said slowly. It wasn't concern for you. It was guilt. She was trying to... What? Warn you? Ease her own conscience? She told me I was making a mistake, that I was settling. The memory felt different now, recontextualized by the messages she'd just read. She wasn't trying to help me. She was trying to justify what she was doing. Desiree stood abruptly, grabbed the laptop, and hurled it across the room. It hit the wall with a satisfying crack, the screen shattering into a spiderweb of broken glass. "Feel better?" Amber asked. "Not even a little bit." They finished packing in silence. Desiree took more than she'd originally planned. Anything that was solely hers. Anything she didn't want Terrence to have. Photos of her family went into boxes. Books she'd owned before meeting him. The art she'd bought with her own money. She was stripping the condo of her presence, erasing herself from this life they'd built. She was loading the last box into Amber's car when Terrence's Audi pulled up to the curb. "Shit," Amber muttered. "You want to leave? We can go now." But Desiree stood frozen, watching Terrence get out of the car. He looked terrible. Hadn't shaved, dark circles under his eyes, his usually immaculate appearance rumpled. Good. She hoped he hadn't slept. She hoped he'd spent the whole night as miserable as she'd been. "Desiree," he said, his voice cracking on her name. "Thank God. I've been trying to reach you all night. Can we please talk?" "There's nothing to talk about." "Yes, there is. Let me explain." "Explain what?" Desiree's voice was ice. "Explain how you've been fucking my cousin for 4 months. Explain how you were planning to leave me right after using my family to celebrate our engagement. Explain how you told her you were falling in love with her while you were putting a ring on my finger." Terrence went pale. "You read my messages. Your laptop wasn't password protected. Guess you never thought I'd have a reason not to trust you." "Des, please. It wasn't supposed to happen like this." "How was it supposed to happen, Terrence? You were going to break up with me after the dinner, right? That was the plan? Very considerate of you, waiting until after you humiliated me in front of my entire family. I never wanted to humiliate you. I was trying to do the right thing." "The right thing?" Desiree's voice rose. "The right thing would have been not fucking my cousin. The right thing would have been ending our relationship before you started one with someone else. The right thing would have been not proposing to me when you were already in love with Simone." "I do love you," Terrence said desperately. "That was real. Everything between us was real. Don't." Desiree held up her hand. "Don't you dare try to rewrite history. You don't cheat on people you love. You don't lie to them for months. You don't plan to leave them while making speeches about how they're the best thing that ever happened to you. I was confused. I didn't know what I wanted. Well, you made it pretty clear last night what you want. So, congratulations, Terrence. You can have her. You can have Simone and whatever fucked up relationship you two think you're building. But you don't get to have me." She pulled off her engagement ring, the 2-carat diamond that had cost more than some people's cars, the symbol of a future that had turned out to be fiction, and threw it at him. It bounced off his chest and fell to the sidewalk. "Des, wait. I saw the messages, Terrence. All of them. I know this started in July. I know you told her you loved her. I know you were planning to leave me. So there's nothing left to explain. It's over. Can we at least talk about this like adults? Figure out how to split things up, deal with the lease. Have your lawyer contact me about the lease. Send my things to my parents' house. I don't want anything that reminds me of you or this life we were supposedly building. Desiree, please. I made a terrible mistake. I got caught up in something I didn't know how to handle. But I love you. I want to fix this. I want us to work through it. There is no us anymore. There hasn't been for months, apparently. You just forgot to tell me." She got into Amber's car without looking back. As they pulled away from the curb, she saw Terrence in the side mirror, standing on the sidewalk with her engagement ring in his hand, the picture of devastation. She didn't feel sorry for him. "Where to?" Amber asked gently. "My parents' house. I need to go home." The drive back to her childhood home in Hyde Park took 25 minutes through Saturday afternoon traffic. Desiree stared out the window, numb, watching Chicago pass by, the city where she'd built her career, found love, planned a future. All of it tainted now. Her mother was waiting on the porch when they arrived, and Desiree collapsed into her arms like she was 7 years old again, coming home from school after being bullied. "I've got you, baby," Patricia murmured, stroking her hair. "I've got you." The guest bedroom in Desiree's childhood home still had remnants of her teenage years. A bookshelf full of worn paperbacks, a desk scarred with sticker residue, lavender walls she'd chosen at 14 and never bothered to change. Being here felt like time traveling, like becoming a younger version of herself before Terrence, before Simone's betrayal, before everything fell apart. She'd been home for 3 days. 3 days of her mother bringing her food she couldn't eat, her father making awkward attempts at comfort, her younger sister Janelle stopping by with wine and rage on Desiree's behalf. 3 days of ignoring calls from Terrence, from Simone, from various family members who'd heard what happened and wanted details, or to offer support or, in some cases, to tell her she was overreacting. That last group could go to hell. On Monday morning, Desiree woke to her phone buzzing. Not Terrence this time. She'd blocked him after the confrontation at the condo. The caller ID showed Aunt Carol, Simone's mother. Desiree almost didn't answer. She didn't want to hear excuses for Simone, didn't want to be told that families work through things, that forgiveness was important. But curiosity won out. "Hello? Desiree?" Aunt Carol's voice was thick with emotion. "Baby, I am so sorry. I didn't know. I swear to God I had no idea what Simone was doing." "It's not your fault, Auntie. She's my daughter. I raised her to be better than this." Carol's voice broke. "I don't even know what to say. I'm ashamed. I'm disgusted. What she did to you, there's no excuse for it." "Where is she?" Desiree asked despite herself. "She's here. Been crying for 3 days straight. Says she wants to talk to you, to explain." "There's nothing to explain. I read the messages between her and Terrence. I know everything." A sharp intake of breath. "What messages?" "They've been having an affair since July. 4 months, Aunt Carol. She's been sleeping with my fiancé for 4 months. Oh, God. Oh, Desiree, I'm so sorry." Carol was crying now. "I told her she needed to stay away from him. After he came by the house that first time, I told her it wasn't right, that she was playing with fire. But she swore nothing was happening, said they were just friends. He came to your house. This was new information. A few times. Said he wanted to talk to Simone about wedding planning, about surprising you with something. I thought it was sweet." Carol laughed bitterly. "I'm such a fool. I believed my own daughter's lies." They talked for a few more minutes, Carol alternating between apologies and self-recrimination. By the time they hung up, Desiree felt emotionally wrung out, exhausted from carrying other people's guilt on top of her own pain. She was making coffee in the kitchen when Janelle arrived, bursting through the door with the particular energy of someone on a mission. "Get dressed," Janelle announced. "We're going out." "I don't want to go out." "I don't care what you want. You've been holed up in this house for 3 days wearing the same pajamas and feeling sorry for yourself. Today, that ends. Janelle, no arguments. Shower, get dressed in actual clothes, and meet me in the car in 30 minutes. We're doing retail therapy." Desiree wanted to argue, but the look on her sister's face suggested that would be futile. Besides, maybe Janelle was right. Maybe sitting in her childhood bedroom wallowing wasn't helping anything. 30 minutes later, they were driving toward the Magnificent Mile, Janelle's car pumping out Fiancé at a volume that made conversation difficult. Probably intentional. "So," Janelle said when they parked, turning down the music. "Have you decided what you're doing? About the condo? The wedding plans? All of it?" "There's no wedding, obviously." "Right. But you had vendors on deposit. A venue booked. You need to cancel things." The thought of calling the florist, the caterer, the photographer who'd been so excited to shoot her spring wedding, it made Desiree want to crawl back into bed and never emerge. "I can't think about that right now." "Okay. Then I'll handle it. Give me the vendor list and I'll make the calls. Jan, you don't have to. Yes, I do. You're my sister. This is what family does. Janelle's expression softened. Besides, I kind of want an excuse to tell all those vendors what a piece of shit Terrence is. It'll be therapeutic. Despite everything, Desiree smiled. You're a good sister. I know. Now let's go spend your would-be wedding budget on making you feel better. They spent the afternoon shopping. Not just retail therapy, but literal therapy. Janelle made Desiree try on clothes she'd normally never choose. Bold colors, daring cuts, styles that felt nothing like the conservative wardrobe she'd cultivated to match Terrence's corporate world. You've been dressing like a consultant's wife for 2 years, Janelle said, holding up a ruby red dress that looked like sin. Try this. That's not me. How do you know? When's the last time you bought something just because you liked it, not because it fit some image of who you thought you should be? The question hit harder than Janelle probably intended. When had Desiree last made a choice based purely on her own desires? She'd spent so long becoming the woman she thought Terrence wanted, the woman her family expected, the perfect fiancé who did everything right. She tried on the red dress. It fit like it had been made for her, hugging curves she usually tried to minimize, making her feel powerful and sexy and entirely unlike the woman who'd been betrayed. We're buying it, Janelle declared. And these shoes, and this jacket. You're getting a whole new wardrobe. I can't afford. Yes, you can. You make good money, Des. You've just been saving everything for the wedding, for the life you were building with Terrence. Well, fuck that life. Build a new one. By the time they stopped for lunch, Desiree had spent more money than she had in the last year combined. It felt reckless and wonderful, and like taking up space in a way she'd forgotten how to do. They sat in a small Italian restaurant in River North, wine flowing freely despite it being barely 2 p.m. Can I ask you something? Janelle said after their food arrived. And I need you to be honest. Okay. Were you happy with Terrence before all this? It was the second time someone had asked her that question. Simone had asked it at the engagement dinner, and Desiree had deflected. But now, sitting across from her sister with her life in pieces, she couldn't avoid it anymore. I thought I was, she said slowly. I thought I had everything I wanted. The successful boyfriend, the engagement, the plan for the future. But I don't know if I was happy or if I was just comfortable. If I loved him, or if I loved the idea of him, of what he represented. Desiree took a sip of wine. Does that make sense? It makes perfect sense. And Des? I don't think you really loved him. How can you say that? Because if you'd really loved him, you'd be more devastated. Don't get me wrong. What happened is terrible, and you have every right to be hurt and angry. But you're not destroyed. You're pissed off and humiliated. But you're not broken. You know? Desiree considered this. Her sister was right. She felt betrayed, furious, mortified that her engagement had imploded so publicly. But there was a part of her, a part she didn't want to acknowledge, that felt relieved, like she'd been given permission to escape something she'd been too invested in to quit on her own. I think I loved the life more than the man, she admitted quietly. The apartment, the restaurants, the image of us together. Being the one who did everything right, who had the perfect relationship everyone envied. And now? Now I don't know who I am. I built my entire identity around being Terrence's fiancé. And without that, she gestured helplessly. I'm 30 years old and I don't know who I am. Then maybe, Janelle said, echoing Amber's words from days ago. It's time to figure that out. They finished lunch and were walking back to the car when Desiree's phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Hello? Des, thank God. It's me. Simone's voice, calling from a different number since Desiree had blocked her main one. Don't call me again. Desiree moved to hang up. Wait, please. Just give me 5 minutes. 5 minutes, and then I'll leave you alone forever if that's what you want. I don't want to hear your excuses. I'm not calling to make excuses. I'm calling because you deserve the truth. The whole truth. Not just the version Terrence is probably trying to sell you. Desiree hesitated. She should hang up. She didn't owe Simone anything. Didn't need to hear whatever justification or manipulation she'd prepared. But that same need to understand, to have all the pieces of the story, made her stay on the line. 5 minutes, she said. That's all you get. Thank you. Can we meet? In person? There are things I need to show you. Show me? Things on my phone. Proof that Terrence... Look, I'm not trying to absolve myself of responsibility. What I did was terrible. But Des, you need to know who he really is. I know who he is. He's a cheater who was planning to leave me. He's worse than that. Please, just meet me. Anywhere public. Anywhere you feel safe. Bring Janelle or Amber if you want. I just need you to see this. Every instinct told Desiree to hang up, to maintain her boundaries, to protect herself from further manipulation. But she couldn't shake the feeling that there was something else. Some other piece of the puzzle she was missing. Fine. 1 hour. The Starbucks on Michigan Avenue near Water Tower. Janelle will be with me. And if this is some trick, it's not, I promise. Thank you, Des. Thank you for giving me this chance. Simone hung up before Desiree could respond. What did she want? Janelle asked. To meet. Says she has things to show me about Terrence. Desiree looked at her sister. I told her you'd come with me. Damn right I will. And if she tries anything, I'm fully prepared to catch a charge. They arrived at the Starbucks early, claiming a table in the back with a clear view of the entrance. Desiree ordered a latte she didn't want, her stomach too twisted with anxiety to handle caffeine. Simone walked in at exactly 3 p.m., looking as bad as Desiree felt. Her box braids were pulled back in a messy bun, her face bare of makeup, her eyes swollen from crying. She wore leggings and an oversized sweater, a far cry from her usual carefully curated appearance. Thank you for coming, she said, sliding into the chair across from Desiree. Janelle sat between them, arms crossed, radiating hostility. You have 5 minutes, Desiree said. Start talking. Simone pulled out her phone with shaking hands. I need you to see these messages first, from before the affair started. She turned the phone so Desiree could see. The conversation was between Simone and someone named Marcus, apparently an ex-boyfriend from L.A. July 10th. Marcus, how's Chicago? Simone, good. Living with my mom temporarily but looking for my own place. Marcus, you see that cousin you were always talking about? The perfect one? Simone, yeah, she's engaged. To this guy Terrence. They seem happy, Marcus. You jealous? Simone, maybe a little. She has everything I wanted. Career, relationship, stability. Marcus, so take it. Simone, what? Marcus, if you want her life so bad, take it. You're hot enough. Seduce the fiancé, Simone. That's insane. Marcus, is it? Sounds like a challenge to me. Desiree's stomach turned. Why are you showing me this? Because I need you to know how it started. I didn't wake up one day and decide to seduce Terrence. Marcus planted that idea and I... Simone's voice broke. I let it take root. I started looking at Terrence differently, started seeing him as a challenge, as a way to prove I could have what you had. So this is Marcus's fault? Janelle's voice dripped sarcasm. You poor thing, manipulated into sleeping with your cousin's fiancé. No, that's not what I'm saying. I made my own choices. I'm responsible for what I did. But Des, you need to see the rest. She scrolled to a different conversation. These are messages between me and Terrence from August. August 14th. Terrence, can I be honest with you about something? Simone. Of course, Terrence. I'm not sure I want to marry Des Simone. What? Why did you propose then? Terrence. Pressure. Her family, my family, everyone expecting it. She's a great woman, but... Simone. But what? Terrence. But she's boring. Everything has to be perfect with her. She's so focused on appearances, on doing everything right. There's no spontaneity, no passion, Simone. Maybe you should tell her how you feel, Terrence. And say what? Sorry, babe, but you're too perfect, too responsible. She'd be devastated, Simone. So what are you going to do? Terrence. I don't know. But being around you, you're different. You're real. You don't care what people think, Simone. Terrence. Terrence. I can't stop thinking about you. Stop, Desiree said, pushing the phone away. I don't need to see any more. Yes, you do. Because it gets worse. Simone scrolled further. Look at this. From September 30th. Terrence. I have a confession. Simone. What? Terrence. I proposed to Des because I thought she was safe, because everyone approved of her, because it's what I was supposed to do, Simone. That's terrible, Terrence, I know. But the truth is, I don't think I ever really loved her. I loved the idea of her. The perfect black woman, with the good career and the nice family, Simone. You're saying this to make me feel better about what we're doing, Terrence. I'm saying it because it's true. Des is a placeholder. You're the one I actually want. Desiree felt like she'd been punched in the stomach. A placeholder. That's what she'd been to him. Not a person, not someone he loved, but a convenient choice, a safe option while he looked for what he really wanted. He played both of us, Simone said quietly. He told me he was planning to leave you. He told you I seduced him away. The truth is, he never wanted either of us. He wanted an image with you, and he wanted excitement with me. We were both just objects to him, ways to meet his needs. This doesn't absolve you, Janelle said sharply. You still made the choice to sleep with him. You still betrayed Des. I know. And I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just need Des to know that Terrence isn't some heartbroken fiancé who made a mistake. He's a manipulative asshole who used both of us. Simone looked directly at Desiree. The bathroom conversation at the dinner? When I said you deserved better? I meant it. But I was also trying to ease my guilt about what I was doing. I thought if I warned you, if I gave you a chance to question things, maybe you'd end it yourself, and I wouldn't have to feel so terrible about being with him. How considerate, Desiree said coldly. It wasn't consideration. It was cowardice. I wanted you, but I wanted to not feel like a terrible person for wanting him. So I tried to have it both ways. Warned you while still planning to take him from you. Simone wiped her eyes. I'm telling you all of this because you deserve to know the truth. Terrence is going to try to paint this as him being torn between two women he loved. But he didn't love either of us. He was using both of us, and we were too caught up in competing with each other to see it. They sat in silence for a moment, the coffee shop bustling around them with people living normal lives, having normal problems. Why did you really do it? Desiree finally asked. And don't give me that bullshit about Marcus planting an idea. Why did you decide to go after my fiancé? Simone took a shaky breath. Because I've been jealous of you my whole life. You were always the good one, the smart one, the one everyone was proud of. And I was the screw-up, the disappointment, the cautionary tale. When I saw you with Terrence, saw how perfect your life looked, I wanted to prove I could have that too. That I could take it if I wanted. That I was desirable enough, special enough. So you destroyed my relationship to make yourself feel better? Yes. And it didn't work. I don't feel better. I feel like shit. I ruined the most important relationship in my life to sleep with a man who never gave a damn about either of us. Simone stood up. I'm moving back to LA. I can't stay here. Can't face the family after what I did. My mom is barely speaking to me. Everyone knows what happened. So I'm leaving next week. Good, Janelle said, Stay gone." Simone looked at Desiree one last time. "I know you'll never forgive me. I don't blame you. But I hope someday you can at least understand that I wasn't trying to hurt you specifically. I was trying to fix something broken in myself, and I destroyed us both in the process." She left without waiting for a response, weaving through the crowded coffee shop and disappearing into the Chicago afternoon. "What a fucking mess," Janelle said after she was gone. Desiree just nodded, too exhausted to speak. The revelations from Simone's phone had recontextualized everything, made the betrayal somehow worse because it revealed depths of manipulation she hadn't imagined. Terrence hadn't been torn between two women. He'd been using both of them, playing both of them, and neither had mattered beyond what they could provide for him. She pulled out her own phone and unblocked Terrence's number. His messages immediately flooded in. Dozens from the past few days, each one more desperate than the last. She scrolled past them all and typed a new message. "I know everything. I saw Simone's messages. I know what you really thought of me. Don't contact me again. My lawyer will be in touch about the lease and finalizing everything. We're done." His response came within seconds. "Des, please let me explain. Those messages were taken out of context. I was confused. I do love you." She didn't respond. Instead, she blocked him again, this time with a sense of finality. Whatever Terrence wanted to say, whatever excuses he wanted to make, she didn't need to hear them. She knew enough. "You okay?" Janelle asked. "No, but I will be." Desiree stood, gathering her shopping bags. "Let's go home." As they walked back to the car, Desiree felt something shift inside her. The betrayal still hurt, the humiliation still burned. But underneath it, she felt the first stirrings of something else. Liberation. She'd spent 2 years becoming the woman Terrence wanted, molding herself to fit his expectations, his image of the perfect fiancé. And he'd never even wanted her. Not really. He'd wanted a placeholder, a safe choice, someone to check boxes while he looked for something else. Well, she was done being anyone's placeholder, done being safe, done being perfect. It was time to figure out who Desiree Hamilton actually was, underneath all the expectations and performances. And maybe, just maybe, she'd like that woman better than the one she'd been pretending to be. 2 months later, Desiree stood in the doorway of her new apartment in Pilsen, watching movers carry in furniture she'd chosen herself. Not pieces selected to match Terrence's aesthetic, not compromises between his taste and hers, but things she genuinely loved. A vintage velvet couch in deep teal, mismatched chairs, art from local galleries that spoke to her soul rather than her Instagram feed. The apartment was smaller than the Lincoln Park condo, in a neighborhood Terrence would have considered too ethnic. His words, which should have been a red flag she'd ignored. But it had exposed brick and huge windows, and a rooftop deck where she could see the city skyline. It felt like hers, in a way nothing had felt like hers in years. "Where do you want this?" One of the movers held up a box labeled books. "Bedroom for now. I'll sort through them later." Her phone buzzed. "Amber, checking in for the 3rd time that day. How's the move going?" "Good. Place is coming together." "Dinner tonight to celebrate?" "Can't. Have plans." "Ooh, mysterious." "With who?" Desiree smiled. "You'll see." The truth was, she had a date. Her first since the engagement imploded. A guy named Isaiah she'd met at a gallery opening 2 weeks ago. An artist who painted murals around the city, who had kind eyes and a laugh that made her stomach flip. They'd talked for 2 hours that night. Easy conversation that flowed without effort. And when he'd asked for her number, she'd surprised herself by saying yes. She wasn't ready for anything serious. Might not be ready for months, maybe years. But she was ready to have dinner with a man who looked at her like she was interesting, not like she was a checkbox on his life plan. The movers finished around 4 p.m. Desiree tipped them generously, and then stood alone in her new space, surrounded by boxes but feeling lighter than she had in months. She'd spent the past 2 months in therapy, working through the betrayal, the anger, the complicated grief of losing a relationship that had never been what she thought it was. Dr. Chen, her therapist, had helped her see patterns she'd been ignoring for years. The way she'd always made herself smaller to fit other people's expectations. The way she'd measured her worth by external validation, career success, family approval, having the right kind of boyfriend. The way she'd built an entire identity around being perfect, being approved of, being the good girl who did everything right. "What do you want?" Dr. Chen had asked in their last session. "Not what your family wants, not what society expects. What do you want?" Desiree was still figuring that out. But she knew it involved taking up more space, making choices based on her own desires, building a life that felt authentic rather than curated. It involved wearing that red dress Janelle had bought her, and not caring if it was too much. It involved living in Pilsen instead of Lincoln Park. It involved saying yes to dates with artists who might break her heart, but at least made her feel alive. She was unpacking kitchen boxes when her phone rang. Her mother. "Hi, Mama." "Baby, how's the new place?" "It's good. Still have a lot of unpacking to do, but I love it. Your father and I want to come see it. Bring you a housewarming gift." "That would be nice. Maybe next weekend?" They chatted for a few minutes about family gossip, carefully avoiding any mention of Simone, who had indeed moved back to LA and cut off contact with most of the family. Desiree had heard through the grapevine that Simone was in therapy too, trying to work through whatever had driven her to such destructive choices. Desiree hoped therapy helped her. Despite everything, despite the betrayal and hurt, she didn't want Simone to suffer forever. She just wanted her to be far away. "Have you heard anything from Terrence?" Patricia asked carefully. "No. His lawyer contacted mine about the lease. He's buying out my half, taking over the condo. I signed the papers last week." "Good. That man doesn't deserve another second of your time or energy." Desiree agreed. She'd seen Terrence once since their confrontation at the condo, a chance encounter at Whole Foods that had been as awkward as it was brief. He'd tried to talk to her, but she'd simply walked away, refusing to engage. There was nothing left to say. She'd heard through mutual friends that he and Simone weren't together. Whatever they'd thought they had, it hadn't survived the exposure of their affair. Apparently, Terrence had tried to reconcile with Desiree, and when that failed, had tried to pursue Simone seriously, only to discover that she'd moved across the country and wanted nothing to do with him. Karma, Desiree thought, had a poetic sense of justice. After hanging up with her mother, Desiree continued unpacking, creating order from chaos, building a home that reflected who she actually was, rather than who she'd been pretending to be. By 6 p.m., she'd made significant progress. The kitchen was functional, the bedroom was set up, and the living room looked lived in rather than staged. She showered, taking her time, using the expensive products she'd always saved for special occasions. Every day was a special occasion now. She dried her natural hair, letting her curls fall freely instead of straightening them into submission. She put on the red dress, her armor, her rebellion, her declaration that she was done playing it safe. Isaiah had suggested a restaurant in Logan Square, a farm-to-table place that was supposed to be incredible. Desiree took an Uber, arriving 5 minutes early. He was already there, standing outside, and his face lit up when he saw her. "Wow," he said simply. "You look amazing." "Thank you." And she felt amazing, powerful in her red dress, confident in a way that had nothing to do with anyone else's approval. Dinner was easy, natural, the kind of conversation where 2 hours felt like 20 minutes. Isaiah talked about his art, the mural project he was working on in Bronzeville, his vision for making Chicago more beautiful one wall at a time. He asked about her work. She was a marketing director for a nonprofit, something she loved but had downplayed when dating Terrence, who'd always made her job seem less important than his. "That's incredible," Isaiah said when she described a recent campaign. "You're literally making the world better. That's beautiful." No one had ever called her work beautiful before. Over dessert, he asked about her engagement ring, or rather the absence of it. Desiree had been expecting this question, had prepared for it. "I was engaged," she said carefully. "It ended badly. 2 months ago. I'm probably not ready for anything serious, and I should have told you that before." "Hey," Isaiah interrupted gently. "I'm not asking for serious. I'm just asking to get to know you. If all that comes from tonight is good conversation and better food, that's enough. We don't need to plan the future on the first date." Something in Desiree's chest loosened. With Terrence, every date had felt like an audition, a test she needed to pass. But Isaiah wasn't testing her. He was just present, interested, real. "Can I ask what happened?" he said. "With the engagement? You don't have to tell me if you don't want to. My fiancé cheated on me with my cousin. I found out at our engagement dinner, in front of my entire family." Isaiah winced. "Jesus, that's brutal." "Yeah, it was. Still is some days. But I'm working through it. Learning things about myself I probably needed to learn." "Like what?" "Like I spent a lot of years trying to be perfect instead of trying to be happy. Like I was more invested in the image of my relationship than the reality of it. Like I'd been ignoring red flags because acknowledging them would mean admitting I'd made a mistake." She paused. "Sorry, that's probably too heavy for a first date." "No, it's honest. I appreciate honest." Isaiah leaned back in his chair. "You want to know what I see when I look at you?" "What?" "Someone who's figuring herself out. Someone who's done playing roles. Someone who's brave enough to start over even when it's scary." He smiled. "That's attractive as hell." Desiree felt heat rise in her cheeks. "You barely know me." "True, but I'd like to. If you're open to it. No pressure, no expectations. Just 2 people seeing where things go." They left the restaurant and walked through Logan Square, the November cold biting but not unbearable. Isaiah told her about the neighborhood, pointed out buildings where he'd painted murals, shared stories about the community he'd become part of. His passion was evident, his love for Chicago infectious. They ended up at a small jazz club, crowded and intimate, where a quartet played standards with skill and heart. Isaiah ordered them whiskey, and they sat close in a booth, his arm eventually finding its way around her shoulders. It felt good. Comfortable but electric. Familiar, but new. "Can I kiss you?" he asked when the set ended, his face close to hers. Desiree's heart pounded. She hadn't kissed anyone but Terrence in 2 years. Hadn't wanted to, but she wanted this. "Yes," she breathed. The kiss was soft at first, questioning, then deeper when she responded. It tasted like whiskey and possibility, like closing one chapter and opening another. When they pulled apart, Desiree was smiling. "That was nice," Isaiah said, his own smile matching hers. "Yeah, it was." They stayed until the club closed at 2 a.m., talking and laughing and stealing kisses between sets. When Isaiah finally called her an Uber, he walked her to the car and kissed her again, slower this time, sweeter. "Can I see you again?" he asked. "I'd like that." "Good. Because I'm already trying to figure out how to paint you." "Paint me?" "You'd be a beautiful subject, all that fire wrapped in elegance. The way you carry yourself. It's art." No one had ever said anything like that to her before. Terrence had called her beautiful in a perfunctory way, the way you'd comment on nice weather. But Isaiah saw her as art, as something worth capturing and celebrating. The Uber drove her back to Pilsen, through Chicago streets gleaming with rain that had started while they were inside. Desiree watched the city pass, feeling more like herself than she had in years. She wasn't healed. Healing wasn't linear, wasn't quick. But she was moving forward, becoming someone she actually liked, building a life that felt authentic. Her phone buzzed. A text from Isaiah. "Thanks for tonight. You're incredible." She smiled and typed back, "Thank you for seeing me." because that's what it had felt like. With Terrence, she'd always felt like a version of herself, a performance of who she thought she should be. But tonight, Isaiah had seen her, messy and healing and uncertain, and thought she was incredible anyway. Maybe that was what love was supposed to feel like. Not pressure to be perfect, but permission to be real. The gallery opening was packed, Chicago's art scene showing up en masse to celebrate Isaiah's first major solo show. Desiree stood in front of the centerpiece, a massive mural-style painting that took up an entire wall, and felt her breath catch. It was her. Not a literal portrait, but an interpretation. A black woman in red, surrounded by flames that looked like wings, rising from ashes that swirled at her feet. Her face was turned toward light streaming from above, her expression fierce and tender at once. At the bottom, the title, Phoenix Rising. "What do you think?" Isaiah appeared beside her, nervous energy radiating off him despite his outward calm. "I think," Desiree said slowly, "that you see me better than I see myself. I see who you're becoming, the woman you are when you stop performing, when you let yourself just be." He took her hand. "You inspired this whole collection, the whole theme, transformation, rebirth, becoming." The other paintings in the show told similar stories, people emerging from cocoons, butterflies with human eyes, figures shedding old skins to reveal new selves underneath. It was a love letter to metamorphosis, to the painful beauty of becoming. "It's incredible," Desiree whispered. "You're incredible." They'd been together for 6 months now, 6 months of slow, careful building. Not rushing into labels or promises, just seeing where things went. Isaiah had met her family last month, charming her mother with his thoughtfulness, and her father with his genuine interest in Desiree's happiness. He'd been patient with her trust issues, understanding when she needed space, present when she needed support. It wasn't perfect. Relationships never were. They argued sometimes, misunderstood each other, had to work through conflicts. But it was real in a way nothing with Terrence had ever been. Isaiah saw her flaws and loved her anyway. He challenged her to be authentic, to take up space, to build a life that made her happy instead of impressed other people. "Ladies and gentlemen," the gallery owner's voice cut through the crowd. "If I could have your attention, the artist would like to say a few words." Isaiah squeezed Desiree's hand and walked to the center of the room. He looked good. Wearing all black, his locks pulled back, confidence in his stance. "Thank you all for being here tonight," he began. "This collection has been 2 years in the making, but the real work happened in the last 6 months. I met someone." His eyes found Desiree's, "who taught me what transformation actually looks like. Not the pretty, easy kind we see in movies, but the hard, messy, painful kind that breaks you down so you can build yourself better." Desiree felt tears prick her eyes. She went through something terrible, a betrayal that would have destroyed a lot of people. But instead of letting it define her, she let it refine her. She shed the version of herself she thought she needed to be and became who she actually is. And watching that process, witnessing that courage, it inspired everything you see here. He crossed back to where Desiree stood, in front of the Phoenix painting. "So this show is dedicated to all of us who've had to burn down and rebuild, to everyone who's been betrayed and found the strength to trust again, to anyone who's had to become someone new because the old version couldn't survive." The crowd applauded. People came up to congratulate Isaiah, to purchase paintings, to discuss the work. But he kept returning to Desiree, his anchor, his muse, his partner in becoming. Later, after the opening wound down, they walked along the Chicago River, the city lights reflecting on the water like liquid gold. Desiree wore a new dress, emerald green this time, bold and beautiful, and entirely her choice. "Did you mean what you said?" she asked. "About me inspiring the collection?" "Every word. You're the bravest person I know, Des." "I don't feel brave. Most days I feel like I'm barely holding it together. That's what makes it brave. Holding it together when everything's falling apart. Choosing to keep going when it would be easier to give up. Building something new when the old thing was destroyed. They stopped at a bench overlooking the river. Desiree leaned against Isaiah, feeling safe, feeling seen, feeling like herself. "I never thanked you," she said. "For what?" "For seeing me. Not the version I was performing, not the perfect fiancé or the corporate girlfriend or whatever role I was playing. Just me. That's the only version I want." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching boats pass, listening to the city breathe around them. "I saw Simone's Instagram the other day," Desiree said quietly. "She's in LA, doing community theater. Looks like she's doing okay. How do you feel about that?" "I don't know. I'm not angry anymore. Maybe I never really was. At least not at her specifically. I was angry at the situation, at what it revealed about my relationship, about myself. But Simone was just acting out her own pain, her own insecurities. We both were, in different ways." "That's growth," Isaiah observed. "Being able to see the complexity instead of just the betrayal." "I don't know if I'll ever forgive her, but I hope she's finding herself the way I'm finding myself. I hope she's learning to build a life that's authentically hers instead of a reaction to mine. And Terrence, I hope he gets therapy. I hope he figures out why he uses people, but mostly I just hope he stays far away from me." Isaiah laughed. "Fair." They walked back toward Pilsen as the night deepened, through neighborhoods Desiree was learning to call home. Not the polished, gentrified Lincoln Park where she'd lived with Terrence, but the vibrant, messy, real Chicago that pulsed with life and art and community. When they reached her apartment, Isaiah walked her up to the door like he always did. "Stay?" Desiree asked. It was a question she'd started asking more often, letting him into her space, her life, her heart in incremental ways. "Always," he answered. Inside, her apartment glowed with warm light. She'd finished decorating, every piece chosen with intention, every corner reflecting some facet of who she actually was. Photos of family and friends covered one wall. Books she'd actually read filled the shelves. Art from local galleries hung on walls painted colors she loved. It was home. Not a showplace, not a performance space, but a real home where she could be messy and human, and herself. They sat on the teal couch, Isaiah's arm around her, comfortable silence stretching between them. Desiree thought about where she'd been 6 months ago. Broken, betrayed, humiliated. And where she was now, healing, whole, happy. The betrayal had been terrible. The pain had been real. But it had also cracked her open in ways that allowed light to enter, forced her to examine who she'd been and who she wanted to become. She'd lost a fiancé who'd never truly seen her. She'd lost a cousin who'd been drowning in her own pain. But she'd found herself in the wreckage. "What are you thinking about?" Isaiah asked, his fingers tracing patterns on her shoulder. "How everything terrible can also be a gift, if you let it transform you instead of destroy you." "That's profound." "That's therapy," Desiree laughed. "Dr. Chen would be proud. I'm proud of you." She turned to look at him, this man who'd entered her life at exactly the right moment, who'd seen her pain and hadn't run from it, who'd helped her remember what it felt like to be chosen without having to audition. "I think I'm falling in love with you," she said. The words felt huge and terrifying and true. Isaiah's smile was slow, warm, reaching his eyes. "I think I've been in love with you since you showed up to our first date in that red dress looking like you'd decided to set the world on fire. Is that a good thing? It's the best thing. Because you deserve to burn down everything that wasn't serving you. And now you get to build whatever you want from the ashes." Desiree kissed him, soft and deep and full of promise. Not the promise of forever. She'd learned that forever was a myth, that all you really had was right now. But the promise of honesty, of seeing each other clearly, of building something real together. When they pulled apart, Isaiah rested his forehead against hers. Thank you. For what? For trusting me. For letting me see you. For being brave enough to start over even when you had every reason to build walls instead. Thank you for making me want to. They stayed like that for a long moment, breathing together, hearts aligned. Outside, Chicago hummed with Friday night energy. People in restaurants and bars, living their lives, making their choices, creating their own stories of heartbreak and healing. And inside her apartment, Desiree felt something she hadn't felt in years. Peace. Not the fragile peace of everything being perfect, but the solid peace of everything being real. She'd been betrayed, yes. She'd been broken, absolutely. But she'd also been reborn. The engagement dinner had been the end of one story, the one where she played a role, performed perfection, made herself small to fit someone else's vision. But it had also been the beginning of another story. This one, where she was the protagonist, the hero, the author of her own becoming. And this story, she decided as Isaiah pulled her closer, as the city glittered outside her windows, as her new life spread before her like an unwritten page. This story was going to be good. Not perfect. Not easy. Not what she'd planned. But authentically, messily, beautifully hers. The restaurant looked different in daylight, less magical than it had been that terrible November evening. Desiree stood outside, taking a deep breath, preparing herself for what came next. "You sure you want to do this?" Janelle asked beside her. "No, but I need to." They walked inside together. The staff recognized Desiree. Hard to forget the woman whose engagement dinner had ended in spectacular disaster. But they were professional, gracious, leading her to the private dining room where it had all happened. Simone was already there, sitting at the same table where she'd sat a year ago. She stood when Desiree entered, nervous energy radiating off her. "Thank you for agreeing to meet," Simone said. "I almost didn't." Desiree sat down, Janelle beside her as moral support. "But my therapist thinks it might help. Closure or whatever." "How are you?" "I'm good. Really good, actually. I have a new apartment, a new relationship, a new life. I'm happy. I'm glad." Simone's relief looked genuine. "I saw your Instagram. You look different. Good different. I'm done performing. Done trying to be perfect. It's liberating." They sat in awkward silence for a moment. Finally, Simone spoke. "I'm in therapy too. Been going 3 times a week since I moved back to LA. Working through a lot of stuff. Childhood issues, self-esteem problems, my pattern of sabotaging myself and others. That's good. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I know I don't deserve it. But I wanted you to know that I understand now why I did what I did. I was trying to steal your life because I hated my own. I thought if I could prove I was desirable enough to take your fiancé, it would mean I was worth something. And did it? No. It just made me hate myself more." Simone's eyes filled with tears. "I destroyed the most important relationship in my life. You, my best friend, my cousin. For a man who didn't actually want either of us. It was the stupidest, most destructive thing I've ever done." Desiree felt something soften in her chest. Not forgiveness exactly, but understanding. They'd both been performing different roles. Desiree as the perfect fiancé, Simone as the irresponsible wild child. Both had been trying to fill voids inside themselves with external validation. And both had paid the price. "Terrence reached out to me last month," Simone continued. "Said he wanted to apologize, to explain. I blocked him. Whatever we thought we had, it was built on lies and manipulation. I don't want any part of it." "Good choice." "I'm moving to New York next month. Fresh start, new city. I got cast in an off-Broadway production. Small role, but it's something. A chance to actually pursue acting instead of just talking about it. Congratulations. I mean that." "Thank you." Simone wiped her eyes. I know I can never fix what I broke between us, but I wanted you to know that you were right. I was jealous of you my whole life, and that jealousy made me do something unforgivable. I'm sorry, Des. Not sorry I got caught. Not sorry things didn't work out with Terrence. Sorry that I hurt you. Sorry that I betrayed your trust. Sorry that I put my insecurities above our relationship. Desiree studied her cousin. This woman she'd known her entire life, who she'd loved and trusted and lost. There was no going back to what they'd been. That relationship had died the night of the engagement dinner. But maybe there could be something new. Not friendship? Not yet. Maybe not ever. But peace. I don't forgive you, Desiree said carefully. Not completely. Maybe someday, but not yet. But I'm working on letting go of the anger. On understanding that you were dealing with your own pain, and hurt people. That's more than I deserve. Probably. But I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it for me. Because holding on to that anger was poisoning me. Keeping me tied to that night. To that version of myself. They talked for another hour. Not about Terrence, not about the affair, but about their childhoods, their insecurities, the ways they'd both been damaged by comparison and competition. It wasn't healing exactly, but it was honest. Real. The kind of conversation they'd never had before because they'd both been too busy performing their roles. When they finally stood to leave, Simone hesitated. Can I hug you? Desiree considered, then nodded. The hug was brief, careful, laden with everything unsaid. When they pulled apart, both had tears in their eyes. Good luck in New York, Desiree said. Good luck with everything. Your relationship, your life. You deserve all the happiness, Des. I mean that. They left the restaurant separately, moving in different directions, toward different futures. Desiree knew they probably wouldn't see each other again for a long time, maybe years. The family would continue to be fractured, the betrayal a story that would be told in whispers at gatherings. But as Desiree walked toward the L station with Janelle, she felt lighter. The anger that had been weighing her down for a year had loosened its grip. She could breathe deeper, move freer. How do you feel? Janelle asked. Like I finally closed the door on that chapter of my life. And the new chapter? Desiree smiled, pulling out her phone to check a text from Isaiah. He was at her apartment, cooking dinner, waiting for her to come home. Home. Not the condo she'd shared with Terrence, not her childhood bedroom, but the space she'd built for herself in Pilsen, filled with her choices, her art, her authentic life. The new chapter is pretty damn good, she said. They took the L back toward Pilsen, the train rocking through Chicago's June afternoon. Desiree watched the city pass, this place that had witnessed her heartbreak and her healing, her performance and her authenticity, her destruction and her becoming. She thought about the woman she'd been a year ago, so desperate to be perfect, so scared of disappointing anyone, so invested in appearances that she'd lost touch with reality. That woman was gone. She'd burned up in the flames of betrayal, and something new had risen from the ashes. This new version wasn't perfect. She still had bad days, still struggled with trust, still carried scars from what had happened. But she was real, authentic, living a life that belonged to her instead of playing a role in someone else's script. Her phone buzzed. Isaiah. Dinner's almost ready. Can't wait to see you. Love you. Desiree typed back. Love you too. Be home soon. The train carried her toward Pilsen, toward Isaiah, toward the life she'd built from ruins. And as Chicago blurred past the windows, Desiree felt something she'd never felt during her engagement to Terrence. Certainty. Not certainty that nothing bad would ever happen again. Life was too unpredictable for that. Not certainty that this relationship would last forever. She'd learned that forever was a myth. But certainty that she was exactly where she was supposed to be. That she was becoming exactly who she was meant to be. that the betrayal that had destroyed her old life had given birth to a new one, better and truer and wholly hers. The engagement dinner had been the worst night of her life, but it had also been the beginning of the best thing that ever happened to her, herself. And that, Desiree thought as she climbed the stairs to her apartment, as Isaiah opened the door with a smile that made her heart skip. As she stepped into the home she'd built and the life she'd chosen, that was worth every painful step of the journey.